So the telescope instructions are hilarious. I mean, look at this illustration. You know, when I've had a hard day at the office programming the ENIAC, I like to come home, have myself a nice pipe, and look through a telescope that I made. I mean, the smoke won't get in the way of anything. But there are some nice instructions in here in terms of dimensions for things. So I'm happy with that. Here he is doing some more serious work. Doesn't have the pipe in his hand. And doesn't this fellow look happy? Oh my goodness. Look at that. Now, I don't know about you, but anytime there's gears, I don't care how slow they're moving, a tie is a bad idea. It's just not right. So one of the designs in this book is for a equatorial telescope mount that relies only on truck casters, of all things. And so just as like on a dolly or something like that, you would have a caster. So it's got a bearing that allows it to pivot in this direction. You've got the wheel that spins on an axle. So the suggestion is that you can produce tension here to adjust this angle and hold it. Yeah, probably. And then you've got this caster here that you can spin it around. So and then you mount that caster on a table so that that table can be pivoted up and down from horizontal relative to the ground, so that it is at an angle that is equal to, complementary to your latitude, so that the plane is tangent to the globe where you're sitting. Yeah, you have to draw a diagram in order to make it make sense. But what that does is it means that an equatorial mount can be locked in one position, pointed at the North Star, or pointed at the celestial pole, the point in the sky about which the Earth appears to rotate. And then, once you've done that, you can pick an altitude in the sky, and then you only have one axis to rotate in order to follow an object in the sky. Unlike with a Dobsonian telescope, where you have two axes that you have to constantly rotate together in order to follow an object. So it's just easier for following objects. You can lock out some of the error in your mount. Well, anyways, like I said, I've been building one out of two pairs of pillow block bearings on plates that are mounted on a hinge, which is 2 bolts, and then there's a yoke here that allows you to adjust the angle. But then there were two pairs of pillow block bearings that were taking the place of an industrial caster. And for a small telescope, that probably would work just fine, actually. I can't see why it wouldn't support it at all. So, yeah. They've been pretty inventive with putting together this diagram. Like, I'm not sure I could find a truck caster that had an axle or a bearing plate like that, but perhaps there are. Maybe there are steerable casters that are like that, but not likely. I think this is a little fanciful in the design. I can't imagine where you would find something like that, but you never know. Might start getting the Google flu out. In any event, it does seem like a pretty easy, simple design, utilizing industrial componentry, and sure, why not? Let's give it a try. Maybe. We'll see. The other thing that's in this reprint is eyepiece designs. and designs for different types of refractor telescopes and ways that they can be constructed out of tubing to incorporate focusing and things like that. But a spiral focusing mechanism of some sort, and then some diagrams of how to get those pieces together using a chop saw, basically. Not too, or you could probably do it by hand too, and then some hand finishing, I would imagine. But anyways, yeah, the thing that I'm going to be using to make the refractor is a piece of glass that they sold at Surplus Shed every once in a while, or it's sell, I guess, every once in a while. And this 5.5 inch refractor lens. So, yeah, 127 millimeter diameter. So, with a focal length, with a focal length of 1.2 meters. So what is that, a 5-foot telescope, roughly, when you think about the focuser, and then you have to have some tubing on the front to protect the lens and things like that. You're probably talking about a 5-foot telescope, unless you can collapse it somehow, or you don't care, and it's just always going to be mounted somewhere, and it's a 5-foot telescope. But I mean, lots of things in our lives are 5 feet. Skis, snowboards, etc. So yeah, there are packaging options available that allow you to travel with it too. So I mean, it doesn't have to be a completely stationary telescope. And so yeah, that is on the list of things to build. But there were some other things that I ordered off of Surplus Shed. These are like $5 lenses or something like that. This looks like it was out of a projector of some sort, I think. So it's maybe 70 millimeters, if that. 4-inch focal length. Probably out of some sort of a projector. Somebody has been into this one because we've got a little bit of a scar on the retaining ring. And maybe I'll buy some retaining ring pliers because I think I'm going to be needing them. And so that could become the objective of a finder scope. At least that's what they were suggesting on Surplus Shed, that those would be useful for. There was also some small lenses for, I think they were for laser applications. So I don't know. Don't know what I'm going to do with those, but they were like practically free. And then there is some lens sets for making an eyepiece. So inside of here we have a convex labeled E, and then we've got a convex concave labeled F, and I think they are to be an air-spaced doublet, it's called, and you can make an eyepiece out of these. And I think one of the, let's call them recipes in that little book, was to make an eyepiece out of these doublets. At least I think that's why I ordered it. It was almost 2 months ago. They're not fast, but they're cheap. So I got a chance to go to London, England once, and there's an excellent technology museum there. Definitely worth a visit when you have a spare few hours to go through. And they had actually one of the ENIACs or a portion of it in the museum. And this thing is amazing. It's amazingly huge equipment because it's made out of vacuum tubes. Thousands of vacuum tubes, almost tens of thousands of capacitors, 500,000 hand soldered joints to try and make sure that every single one is performing to spec. Anyways, I think the lab was in Philadelphia. And when they were developing this thing, when they would turn it on, when it was actually running programs and doing its thing, like these are vacuum tubes. Vacuum tubes operate by heating a filament. So I don't know if you've ever seen a cathode ray tube monitor. I mean, same principle, except smaller. But still, you bundle them all up together. They produce a lot of heat because you're melting tungsten to fire electrons off. In detecting them and turning them on and off with charged gates. Yeah, it's just a lot of heat. 150 kilowatt hours. In Philadelphia, when they would turn that thing on, the lights would dim. It'd be like living next to Doc Brown. And he would turn on one of his crazy experiments trying to invent time travel. And the town lights would dim. Well, they might even go right off, right? But anyways, Philadelphia, a city, lights dim when they turn this thing on. One machine. Lights dim in the city. I mean, that's the story there, but could have been aliens. Okay, so as it turns out, in 1946, the inventors of the ENIAC split off from the university and formed EMC, Eckert Macaulay Computer Corporation, if you can believe that. At least I can, well, maybe EMC came from a different set of three people, but I'll have to look into that. Okay, nope, different EMC. The EMC that we know from today is Dell EMC is actually 1979. It has nothing to do with the two guys that spun off from the ENIAC. Wow, that's quite a tangent. Anyways,